No. We ready? And you got the prayer.
Okay, you ready? Mr. Mayor, it's 7 o'clock.
I will call to order the December 19th meeting to order, and I will recognize Councilwoman Kathy Condon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. To the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we ask for your grace and blessings tonight on our town and on us, that we make good decisions for the town. We ask for your blessing and your mercy on the state of Washington and all the victims of the train and interstate accident. We want to be more like you, especially during this season, so show us the way with your light. We ask this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Next item is the reading of the minutes. There were some changes made to it, so the one that you have in your package is the one that we'll be going to. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And is,
Adjusted one.
yeah.
I got it.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of the minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hand. And next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you'd like to add?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing?
Just one. Mr. Brown, what's January the 15th?
Martin Luther King.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was, not sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, next item is amendments to the agenda. Is there any amendments to the agenda? None. And next will be consideration of communication. We have our audit from our auditor. And I guess if he wants to, come forward and.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for allowing us to conduct the audit again, and thanks to Mr. Brown and Renee, who performed a lot of the work needed to get this audit report together for us. Just briefly, I want to hit just a couple highlights. The first thing is the independent auditor's report letter. I think it's the third page in to the report. And basically, this letter tells you that the financial statements are management's responsibility, and our responsibility is to express an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly presented. And it's our honor to present that these financial statements are fairly presented. It's a clean opinion for the town of Irmo for the June 30th, 2017 year end. On page 9 is what we call the statement of net position. This is the balance sheet similar to the way a business would operate. It has your capital assets and any debt of the town that is part of the town. Our total assets for the year end was $11,865,270. Excuse me, of which $5,274,625 was cash, and that's about 44% of our asset total. The other large asset item is the capital assets. It's $6,145,852, and that's about 52% of our total assets. Our total liabilities were $5,246,414, of which is that net pension liability that we have discussed in the past years. It's $4.4 million of our total liabilities. So we're in a good position from the balance sheet as far as assets to liabilities go. Our net position, we have $6,145,000 invested in capital assets. We have restricted assets of $55,636, and that's related to the victim services. And then we have unrestricted net position of $1,423,021. And this is money that the town can spend as the council sees fit. On page 10 is the statement of activities. It's kind of the income statement of the town. On the bottom right, 3 numbers up, you'll see a net change of a decrease of $60,646. Now, a lot of this relates to that pension adjustment that we have to do every year. If you add back the pension adjustment, it would have been a positive increase of $205,268. So that's how much the pension affected us for the year ended June 30, 2017. On page 11, this is the old financial statements that are just the funds. It doesn't include any capital assets or debt of the town. Our total assets for the governmental funds was $5,646,147, of which $5,002,000 is in cash. So that's about 92% of our fund assets. Our total liabilities were $104,413. So we had a total fund balance of $5,541,734, of which $5,346,988 is unrestricted. Once again, that's money that the town can spend as they need. And that's about 102% of our overall expenditures of the town. So once again, we're in good, sound financial shape. On page 13 is the governmental funds income statement. And once again, on the right-hand side, 3 numbers up, it was a favorable increase to our net fund balance of $320,235 for the year. Okay?
That's our surplus?
Yes, that was your surplus for the fund financials. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to go through the rest of the report in detail. There's a lot of details in here that we could spend the rest of the night talking about. But I just wanted to hit the highlights and let you know what your cash position was and whether you had any increase or decrease for the year. And I'm open for any questions that you may have at this time.
On page 5, where you first brought up that decrease, explain that again, exactly how that works, what that is.
On page 10 or 5?
5.
Okay. Oh, the decrease of $60,646? Yes, sir. That is when GASB came out with that new pension statement where we have to recognize that net pension liability. We have to adjust it every year. And this year it impacted us negatively by, let me flip over to my note, about $280,000. Wow. So if we were to add back that non-cash, that mandatory entry that we have to make now, the surplus for the town on that on this set of financials would have been $205,000. So that's beyond the town's control. That's something that comes from the state every year.
I don't think that figure is going to go down.
No, sir. Not from what we're reading, no, sir. It's going to continue to go up. I think your net pension liability increased. I can't remember how much. It's back here in the back on the footnotes, but increased substantially over the prior year.
What percentage, Bob? Do you remember what percentage it went up?
Yeah, I can't remember either what it went up. I'm trying to find it right quick. And
I think they're curious about the requirement the state puts on us to want to retire, is that the wife pension has to be considered on a thing, like regularly retired kind of.
right, if everybody really, let's say the pension fund went under the PIBA at the state level, went bankrupt. This would be the town's share that they would be required to pay to the state to fund their share of future retirement payments to the retirees.
I understand.
You talking about the 60,000 or that 4?
The 4.4 million.
The 4
Yes, sir.
million.
And you're right about PIBA, just any day now.
Yeah, well, we're really at their control. I mean,
Yeah.
they're working hard, but it's still well underfunded as we see.
On page 17, the Okra page, is that the savings account or the 19,000?
The 19,000 was the cash provided by the operating activities.
Okay.
That is your revenues less your expenses, so to speak.
Okay,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
this year, right?
For 2017,
Okay.
Profit.
profit. The actual profit for the Okra Strut Fund is on page 16. And the actual increase in that position for the Okra Strut Fund was $39,566 in total. 19,000 is just a piece of that.
I understand.
But that was for the 2016.
I understand.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy
too.
New Year.
Thank you.
You and your family.
Any other consideration of communications? Seeing none, next is presentation by citizens. This is where citizens who would like to address something on the agenda may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record and also the agenda item you want to speak on. Seeing none. Next is unfinished business, ordinance 1732. This is the buffering ordinance. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
I so move.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
You're gonna bring one of the members from the planning commission here?
Chairman here, Mr. Walker.
Good. Can I come up to this mic? Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Ryan Cole, Planning Commission Chairman, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for coming tonight, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to me what's going on with this? Why are we doing this with, why is this buffering necessary and what were your thoughts were? What are your thoughts were?
Councilman Walker, we looked at it as a whole, and we compared ourselves to other local jurisdictions, and we were very low on the totem pole as far as buffering between especially commercial bumping up to residential development. And we looked at that, and with great input from Central Midlands, we worked towards reviewing how we stand, like I said, with other local municipalities, and we just tried to bump it up a little bit. Now, he gave us a range from low to high. There are some municipalities that are doing way much more than what we're proposing, and there are some municipalities that are doing less than what we're proposing. But it's simply to try to catch some of the infill development that's going to be coming our way with commercial bumping up to residential, and we were just trying to provide some type of screening better than what we've already got when that does happen.
And the screening you were proposing was a natural tree lining and
It
stuff
is,
like that?
yeah.
As opposed to a hardwood fence or something like that, or?
Yeah, and we did look at that. We talked about it in great detail. With the sound barrier walls and fences, many times that's cost prohibitive. The maintenance is very high on it, and really, frankly, they're an eyesore. So we thought a natural vegetative buffer would be the best way to go. A lot of the times you see those sound barriers are used along interstates to soften traffic noise. But you don't see them very often between mixed uses.
And this is strictly for the mixed use between commercial and residential?
I believe it is, yeah.
Not any commercial.
Well, we did add a little bit in there as well. Again, we were very low with our buffering, and it's, from a planning standpoint, seeing parking lot meeting parking lot meeting parking lot becomes more of an asphalt jungle, as we refer down in the city of Columbia, where I work each day, and it's nice to have those screens and buffers between those uses. So we did add a little bit there, and also we actually added a new buffer type, but we by no means went to an extreme on any of this. We're right there in the middle.
Okay, good. This was only residential to business, nothing else?
Well, I mean, we added a few other things in here. I mean, there was one that, where we're asking for screening, for them to irrigate. I mean, why ask them to put that in there and let it die? It's not serving the purpose, so let's put some irrigation back there. We're also asking, to put a little, screening around the detention ponds as well.
Oh, good,
Yeah, to kind of soften those up a little bit as well.
very good.
Any more questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mayor,
Yeah.
make one quick comment,
Yeah.
and this is unrelated to what I'm up here for. I just want to thank the Irmo PD. Y'all have a fine, outstanding group here. Had to call them out the other day, and I think they made it to my house in less than 2 minutes. So just want to say thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Y'all do a great job.
Thanks for the Irmo PD.
Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Any more discussion?
Quit smiling, Chief. You have good reason to smile.
Any more discussion on the buffer? All in favor then of third and final reading of ordinance 1732, do so with show of hands. Next is second reading of ordinance 1734. This is the changes that we're making to our ordinance on the solid waste, so we don't have conflicting things in the ordinance and also in the contract. Is there a motion for second reading?
So moved.
And a second? I'll second. Any discussion?
This is just to square it up with the contract, right?
Well, you know, before we had all the stuff in the ordinance, and then we had all the stuff in the contract, and they really didn't jive. And people would go to the computer and read all that stuff on there, and that, you know, it wasn't the same as what the contract was. So we're basically taking it all out of the ordinance and just putting a simple sentence in there that everything is in the contract that pertains to it. Any more discussion? All in favor then of second reading of ordinance 1734, do so with show of hands. And next is 1735. This is the one with the unsightly, unsanitary ordinance where we're kind of changing some words on there. Is there a motion for second reading of that?
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
And this is where we're taking out for any residential zoned property and replacing it with in a residentially zoned subdivision. So it kind of puts more emphasis on it being in a subdivision as opposed to, I think we talked about before, Farming Creek and Church Street and Eastview and a few other roads like that. Any more discussion? All in favor then of second reading of 1735, do so with show of hand. Next is new business, 1736. This is having to do with the bonding policy where I think Bob has taken out the, right now we can do a bond, we can do a letter of credit or cash, and he's taken the bond out. So is there a motion for first reading of 1736?
So moved.
Oh, yes.
And a second?
Second.
And that way, after passage of this, people can do the letter of credit or the cash.
Cash.
Cash
We'll get
understood.
rid of the bonds altogether.
Cash is good.
Is there any more discussion?
So is this all the current projects we got on the books now, like the subdivisions, they have given bonds or letter of credits or what?
We've only got the one working right now, and that's Rose Oak Phase 4, and we've got a cash bond from them.
Okay, so we got to tell them that we don't want a cash bond anymore? or- Oh, okay. But the new guy on Irmo Drive?
They haven't submitted anything yet. They're trying to make it a gated community,
Mm-hmm.
which would reduce a lot of this because we would be trying to get the roads taken over by the county. The county and us would be not responsible, it would be the homeowners association. That's what they want to do. But we would still want to make sure it's built to the proper county standards.
I mean, but the bottom line is we don't want to accept bonds anymore here with this ordinance. So
That's correct. No insurance bonds or anything. We'll accept letters of credit or cash. That's pretty much what both Richland and Lexington County are doing, staying away from insurance stuff because it's so hard to write and so hard to get any kind of a claim through.
what's the impact of that towards development that we're doing now, though? I mean,
I'm not sure what affects it. I don't know. I don't think it'll affect anything. If they want to come in here and build, they're going to have, some sort of cash reserve or a letter from a bank saying that, yes, we agree to finish the infrastructure.
Are you through?
And a lot of them already use.
does that make it tougher for people to build here, or
Sir?
will that make it more difficult for folks to build here, or?
No.
I honestly don't know. I mean, with the county doing away with it, I think, and their building hasn't slowed down at all. So I'm thinking the big companies are still going to come in.
And even the other ones, when they go to the bank to get their construction loan and all that mess, they're just gonna
What's the letter of credit saying that you got this much?
get that much more for it.
About the letter of credit, I haven't dealt with those in years. The bank stands behind it, but for how long? Is there a date on there, or?
We're requiring 3-year letters.
Okay,
And then the new policy also would have the same effect, which is why we put that in here also, which is what council wanted to do, is
okay,
make sure that they follow it and they inform us. And the banks are just as responsible to keep us informed as, we are to make sure that we're informed by the contractor and that we check it.
good. Very good.
But you contacted the people at Farming Creek that's gonna build out there, and the Irmo Drive projects and stuff? They all know this is coming? Okay.
We haven't heard nothing from the folks at Farm Creek and Salem Creek Road.
I'm
Development out there. We've heard
Well, I know, clearly they're gonna build a subdivision. I mean, they're gonna have infrastructure.
at some point in time, yes, sir. But that developer has issues with the county right now, so we may not see him for a while.
Okay. I'm just saying, it might be nice to let them know that this is going to happen, You don't blindside them.
We plan on handing the policy out anytime anybody comes in to get any information, plus it'll be online also available, once we approve it.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor then of first reading of ordinance 1736, do so with show of hands. Next is the approval of a budget amendment in amount of $15,000 to fund the mandated legislative proviso regarding the court-appointed attorneys. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This does not make me happy.
But we have no choice.
I know we have
State
no
mandates
choice, but
it.
it still doesn't make me happy.
Well, we might have
Why
a
does
choice.
it make
We'll
you
be-
happy?
talk about it later, but
Why doesn't it make you happy?
I don't think it's fair to the municipalities or to the counties, because it's gonna cost us a fortune. But,
$15,000?
no, that's the beginning,
yeah, it's just for the rest of the year.
yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna discuss this later.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, some other options, but,
okay.
and you think that 15 is enough between now and
January
June,
1st?
whatever, June 30th?
I'll let the judge try to answer that. I mean, he is working on a plan now.
We're working on it. We have one contract proposal from Washington County, which is very favorable, and Lexington County has not submitted a bid. They do not want to bid on it, but we have some other sources. I think this will get us through okay.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Any more discussion?
What is it gonna cost us for the year, you think? Hundreds?
We'll see how these contracts work out with these agencies, and that'll give us a good idea what they'll go with.
Is most of the infractions just vagrancy infractions?
Just what?
Vagrancy, is that most of?
No.
Or is it petty crime?
assaults, it could be domestic violence cases, it could be narcotics cases, possession cases.
Is it a felony?
No, but there are a lot of crimes in this court that carry jail penalties. Your biggest taxpayer, Walmart, is in my court every week with shoplifters.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Sure,
I understand.
sure.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the end of the budget amendment in the amount of $15,000, do so with show of hands. And next is the reappointment of James Mack to the orchestra. I think last time he wasn't, or he hadn't let Bob know for sure 100%, but he has now that he does want to serve. So is there a motion to appoint James Mack, or reappoint James Mack to the orchestra?
I make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any more appointments? All in favor then of James Mack to be reappointed to the orchestra, do so with show of hands. Next is presentation by citizens. This is where anybody who would like to address council on anything may do so at this time. Just give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, George Glassmar, 110 Beck Road. At the risk of delaying what may be a record-short meeting under your tenure, Mr. Mayor, I want to address one item. Go back to item 9B, the amendment of section 1734. I hadn't seen anything about this before, and when I saw it on the screen, I'm a little bit concerned about the amendment. Maybe I just don't understand it clearly, but from what I could tell on the screen, council is proposing now to amend it to only include residences that are located in a residential subdivision, okay? Now, we've got some houses, many houses in this town that I would argue are not in a specific subdivision. For instance, I would challenge you to tell me what subdivision the houses on Fork Avenue are in and what subdivision the houses on Eastview Drive are in.
Those, and I'll just say this, even though this is not a debate.
I understand. I'm not trying to debate, I'm trying to learn.
But that's why we took those out. That's why we're taking them out. That's why we're changing the wording so that houses that are not in a subdivision, such as Eastview,
Fork Avenue,
Farming Creek, Church Street over here, then these ordinances, or those ordinances, 1432, whatever, doesn't apply to those homes.
Does or does not?
Does not.
Okay, why would you not want it to apply to those homes?
Because those homes are not in a subdivision. Some of them are older homes and been here a long time. And I've had some comments from people, and especially on Farming Creek, about since their home is not in a subdivision, they shouldn't be.
So they're held to a different standard than I am because I live in a subdivision?
Yeah, because the ordinance that we passed was actually for houses in subdivisions.
How are they different, other than the fact that they're in a subdivision? I don't get that.
Well, I don't want to get into a whole discussion up here because we are really.
Again, I'm not trying to debate, I'm trying to learn, and I think.
But I just think they are, and I think other people felt like they are too. And when we were passing those ordinances, we were trying to address subdivision homes, all the homes in subdivisions. But we have, like I say, Eastview. Those houses are not in subdivisions. Church Street, some on Fork Avenue.
So they can have unsightly premises and there's nothing the town can do about it because it's not going to be covered under the ordinance?
Right.
They can have garbage piled up a mile high in their front yard and code enforcement is going to be unable to do anything about that if this ordinance passes, right?
Yeah.
Now, how does that make sense?
I just think it does.
Well, I don't, and please note that. Thank you.
All right. Next is, anyone else?
What reading was that we did?
Second, I think.
Second, okay, thanks.
No discussion. We have a executive session to receive some legal advice about our new court directives. Is there a motion to go in executive session?
Make a motion.
And
Is this a court directive for
Yeah.
the attorneys,
yeah.
court appointers?
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor then, do so a show of hands. We will go in real quick and be right back out.
I guess we better keep these here.
Oh, gee, mama. Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I get to wear it once a year. Oh.
That's all we got, I think.
Oh. We are back from executive sessions. No votes were taken, just advice was given. And next is adjournment. Is there a motion for? And a second? Second. All in favor, say yada, yada, yada. Yada, yada, yada.